A man sits alone in a coffee shop. Around him, chaos. Couples snapping selfies, groups gossiping, lone wolves swiping through dating apps like their lives depend on it. Everyone is glued to their screens, desperately chasing validation from strangers on the internet. But this man, he's got earbuds in, not watching TikToks or mindlessly scrolling. He's listening to an audiobook about philosophy. He's calm, present, he's not lonely, he's not desperate, he's not seeking anything or anyone. And that, my friend, makes him the most dangerous person in the room. But why? Why does a man who is at peace with himself, who doesn't need constant attention, who can sit silently with his thoughts, make people so uncomfortable? Hold that thought, because we're about to dive into something that may permanently change how you view solitude. Here's the brutal truth. No one wants to say out loud, our entire social structure is built on your neediness. Think about it. Every ad, every social media post, every dating app, every self-help book, they all thrive on one core belief: you are incomplete without others. Find your soulmate, connect with friends, build your network, join the community. They promise happiness, but only if you're plugged in, connected, and constantly engaging. But what if that's all a lie? What if the man sitting alone, fully content with his own company, is not the broken one, but the only one who's free? What if his peace threatens a system that profits from your emptiness? Here's what I've learned. Society doesn't fear the man who can't be alone, it fears the man who doesn't need anyone. Let me tell you about two men who understood this dangerous truth. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. The most powerful man in the ancient world spent his evenings alone, writing in his private journal. He questioned himself, reflected deeply, and wrote words like, "All cruelty springs from weakness." This was a man who commanded armies, yet still believed the real battle was internal. Centuries later came Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who went mad, yet whose ideas outlived empires. He once wrote, "He who cannot endure solitude, born perhaps of weakness, will never be free." Both men lived in different eras. One ruled the world, the other rejected it, but both discovered the same truth. Solitude isn't isolation, it's power. In a world where everyone is constantly stimulated, where silence feels like suffocation and distraction is medicine, the man who seeks nothing is radical. He's not looking to impress. He's not waiting for a text back. He's not performing for followers, and because of that, he becomes untouchable. You can't manipulate him with likes. You can't sell him happiness. You can't scare him with loneliness. He already knows himself, and that's terrifying to a system that survives off people who don't. When was the last time you were truly alone? No phone, no music, no company, just you and your thoughts. Most people avoid it. They think boredom is dangerous. But here's the twist. Boredom isn't dangerous. Awareness is, because the moment you become aware, really aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your silence, you can't be controlled. You begin to think clearly. You start to question everything, and that makes you powerful. You don't need to delete your social media. You don't need to move to a cabin in the woods. But if you can learn to enjoy your own company, not just tolerate it, you unlock something rare. A stillness that scares people. A self-possession that feels dangerous. A peace that no one can take from you. Be that person. Be alone and be okay with it, because the most dangerous man in any room is the one who doesn't need to be there. The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. That quote cuts deep. Both Marcus Aurelius and Nietzsche discovered something society desperately tries to hide. The person who can be alone with their thoughts is the person who can think for themselves. And thinking for yourself, that's dangerous. Let's talk about what really goes on in the mind of someone who chooses solitude over social validation. It's not sadness, it's not loneliness, it's strength, and it's rare. While the rest of the world is trapped in a loop, posting, liking, commenting, swiping, chasing that next dopamine rush, this person has escaped. They found something more powerful than likes, self-respect that doesn't depend on external metrics. They don't need a thumbs up to feel seen. They don't need a heart emoji to feel loved. They validate themselves. That's the first crack in the matrix. Most people can't spend 5 minutes alone without grabbing their phone. Silence is terrifying because silence forces you to face yourself. But the dangerous loner? They've sat through the 3 a.m. mental storms. They've stared their insecurities in the face. They've made peace with past mistakes. They've argued with their own mind and won. They don't run from discomfort, they grow from it. Here's the real threat. When you don't seek validation from others, you become ungovernable. Rejection doesn't shake you. Popularity doesn't buy you. Social pressure doesn't silence you. You become immune to manipulation from influences, trends, politics, even peer pressure. You stop chasing the world, and the world doesn't know what to do with that kind of power. Most people remember Marcus Aurelius as a Roman emperor, but behind the armor and the title was a man devoted to deep personal reflection. Every night, he practiced something that would feel strange in today's world. He wrote in his private journal, dissecting his own thoughts. This was his method, known today as the discipline of desire. He'd ask himself, what did I want today that I didn't actually need? What did I fear that was outside my control? Where did I seek approval in ways that compromise my values? No filters, no excuses, just brutal honesty. While others sought power from armies, he found strength in self-awareness. His solitude wasn't emptiness, it was refinement. A quiet space to sharpen the mind, confront the ego, and question desire. This wasn't just journaling, this was training, building psychological muscle. Marcus Aurelius understood something deeply profound. The person who knows themselves can't be fooled by the shallow games others play. When you've spent real time alone with your thoughts, when you've looked closely at your motivations, when you've faced your shadow, the opinions of others lose their grip on you. Their attempts to manipulate become transparent, their social games lose their allure, and boredom sets in. You become dangerous because you become free. Nietzsche took this idea even further. He said, "The truly dangerous person is the one who creates their own values instead of inheriting them from society." Think about it. Most people walk through life carrying a moral code that they never actually chose. They believe what they believe because their parents believed it, their friends believe it, and their culture believes it. They live someone else's life. But the person who spends time alone, truly alone, starts asking uncomfortable questions. Why do I believe this? Who benefits from me believing this? What would I believe if I had to start from scratch? This is where it gets dangerous, because once you start thinking for yourself, you stop being predictable. You stop being controllable. You stop being a good little consumer who buys what they're told to buy, votes how they're told to vote, and lives how they're told to live. Now, let's be brutally honest about the difference between loneliness and solitude. Two states our society often confuses. Loneliness is a state of lack. It's the feeling that something is missing inside you, that you are incomplete, that you need others to fill a void within you. Solitude, on the other hand, is a state of wholeness. It's the ability to be complete by yourself, to enjoy your own company, and to find peace in silence. Our society confuses these two states because confusion benefits it. A lonely person is a consumer. They buy products to feel better, seek validation through purchases, and stay distracted and compliant. But a person who enjoys solitude, they're not buying anything, they're not seeking validation, they're not distracted, they're thinking deeply, freely. Solitude breeds clarity. It reveals your true self. In that silence, you stop listening to the noise of the world. You start listening to your own voice, raw, unfiltered, honest. And that's terrifying for society, because the person who sits alone, content in their own company, is the one who cannot be bought, cannot be controlled, cannot be manipulated. The dangerous loner is the rebel. No one sees coming. They don't need a crowd to tell them who they are, they define themselves. And in a world built on conformity and consumption, that kind of freedom is revolutionary. Take a moment to consider the implications. The loner isn't lonely. They're liberated. They're not desperate for connection. they're self-sufficient. This independence makes them unpredictable and uncontrollable. That's why society fears them. It fears the quiet power that comes from knowing yourself so well that no external voice can sway you. In a culture that profits from distraction and dependency, the person who chooses solitude is a threat to the status quo. They're not consumers, they're thinkers. They don't need approval, they need truth. This truth is their power, and this power makes them dangerous. Whenever you see someone sitting alone, fully present with their thoughts, don't mistake them for lonely or antisocial. They might just be the most powerful person in the room. They are the ones who have stepped off the treadmill of social validation. They are the ones who see the strings behind the puppet show and have cut them. This is not isolation. This is mastery. Solitude is a choice. It's a discipline. It's a path to freedom. When you can sit quietly with yourself and not run away, you unlock the power to think clearly, to question deeply, and to live authentically. So next time you see someone alone in a coffee shop, earbuds in, lost in their own world, remember, they're not lonely, they're dangerous, and that terrifies society. People who truly embrace solitude, those who become self-reliant and self-aware, are dangerous to systems built on thoughtless compliance. Why? Because such systems thrive on conformity, dependency, and unquestioning obedience. When a person steps outside that pattern, when they begin to think and act independently, they disrupt the very foundation of control. After studying the lives and philosophies of Marcus Aurelius and Friedrich Nietzsche, I've identified 4 essential pillars that define this kind of dangerous solitude. These pillars explain why someone who masters being alone is not just different, but a real threat to the social order. 1. Radical self-honesty. The first pillar is radical self-honesty. The dangerous loner doesn't sugarcoat their reality or deceive themselves to feel better. They look deep inside and confront their true motivations, fears, and desires without flinching. This level of brutal honesty with oneself is rare because it's uncomfortable. Most people prefer comforting lies or convenient half-truths, but when you refuse to lie to yourself, you develop an extraordinary power, the ability to spot dishonesty in others. You become skilled at detecting manipulation, deception, and falsehoods because you've already confronted your own illusions. Pretty words, social performances, or polished appearances no longer fool you. This honesty makes the dangerous loner unpredictable and resistant to being controlled through lies or superficial charm. Point 2. Value independence. The second pillar is value independence. Unlike many who adopt the morals and values passed down by family culture or society without question, the dangerous loner develops a moral code of their own. Their values are rooted in reason, experience, and personal reflection, rather than external pressure or tradition. This doesn't mean they reject morality. Often, their ethical standards are higher and more consistent than most, but because these values come from within, they are not subject to manipulation through shame, guilt, or social approval. They do what they believe is right, regardless of whether it's popular or accepted. This internal compass makes them immune to coercion and unable to be swayed by social trends or the demands of authority. Emotional self-sufficiency. The third pillar is emotional self-sufficiency. Most people rely on others to regulate their emotional states. They seek validation, approval, love, or reassurance to feel good, but the dangerous loner learns to be their own source of emotional stability. They master the art of self-regulation and find peace within themselves. This ability means they cannot be emotionally manipulated or destabilized by others. They don't need your approval or acceptance to feel whole. This independence is profoundly unsettling to those who depend on social validation to maintain their identity and self-worth. The dangerous loner's emotional autonomy breaks the chains of interpersonal manipulation. Intellectual courage. The final pillar is intellectual courage. The willingness to think thoughts others avoid, question widely accepted beliefs, and follow evidence wherever it leads, no matter how uncomfortable or unpopular. Intellectual courage means not being silenced by social pressure or fear of rejection. It means speaking uncomfortable truths, challenging the status quo, and holding convictions even when it costs you socially or professionally. This kind of courage makes the dangerous loner a beacon of independent thought in a world often characterized by herd mentality and groupthink. It's important not to romanticize this path. The road to dangerous solitude is not easy. There is a price to pay. People will misunderstand you. They may call you antisocial, arrogant, or weird simply because you don't fit their expectations. Society tends to pathologize those who prefer solitude, confusing loneliness with independence. You will sometimes feel isolated, not lonely, but isolated in your different level of consciousness. That feeling is a natural byproduct of growth. You begin to see that many people live on an entirely different wavelength, one tied to social validation and dependency. Relationships will change. Some friends, especially those invested in your neediness, may feel threatened by your newfound independence and slowly drift away. Family members might struggle to accept your growth and push for conformity. Social pressure to fit in will be constant, sometimes subtle, sometimes overt. You'll be told to be more social, more normal, more like everyone else. But resist that pressure, because the true price of conformity is far higher. It is the loss of your soul. Let's unpack why society fears those who become self-sufficient in thought, emotion, and spirit.